Joining us right now is a person who has seen the horrors of the Taliban from very close up. A senior minister in the Vajpayee government who was witness to all the drama that was unfolding around the IC-814 hijack in 1999. He saw it all. And at this moment, when the world is debating whether we should trust the Taliban, I can't think of a better person to be able to tell us what really was this organization capable of doing, terrorist organization capable of doing, than my guest, Mr. Yashwant Sinha. Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha, for joining us. When the world is talking about talking to the Taliban, talking to them, opening up a front, giving them legitimacy, in India, one can't help but remember the horrors of Kandahar in 1999, the turn of the millennium where India was struggling to negotiate with these terrorists. I want to know your opinion, sir. What do you have to think about negotiating or talking to the Taliban?
Well, if you look at the past, then it's a very horrible picture of Taliban. It's not merely the Kandahar hijacking. I would also like to refer to the demolition of the Bhamayan Buddha,
Correct.
Such a historic site. They tried to erase history by doing this. So the past is horrible. The past does not give us any scope for having anything to do with Taliban. But having said that, let me remind you that Taliban was in Doha, where India was also invited, and India participated in the recent Doha conference led by the Americans, where Taliban was also present. So we were not squeamish about sitting on the same table as Taliban. And I'd like to remind you that we were very strict as far as LTT in Sri Lanka was concerned. And even when the Sri Lankan government decided to talk to the LTTE in Norway, we decided that we'll not participate, not only not participate in those talks, but we'll not even send an observer to those talks. And we are stuck by that. But this time, the government has another, obviously, point of view, and they did not mind sitting with Taliban on the same table in Doha. Now, Taliban has taken over Afghanistan. It was only a question of time, I think, after the Americans came to terms with them and withdrew their forces. It's a very difficult situation, Sanket, in Taliban today, in Afghanistan today. And my recommendation to the government of India will be just wait and watch. Don't be in a hurry to come to any conclusion. Let's see how Taliban behaves in power, in government. There is no government in Afghanistan.
Correct.
So we have to wait for a number of things to happen before we decide how we deal with Taliban. But Taliban, one, was a terrorist organization. There is no doubt about it. We'll have to wait and watch and see what Taliban 2 turns out to be.
Yes, Mr. Sinha, while the government is doing exactly that, because the sense when you speak to people in the establishment is that our top priority is to make sure that the Indians who are there, stranded there, are safe and nothing happens to them, which is why the wait and watch and no outright declaration of rejection or any reaction for that matter. So they are pretty much doing what you have advised them to do. Having said that, how confident are you that this Taliban is going to be changed in any way? Because if you see what they're doing right now, for instance, they're dealing with women, what they say and what they're doing on the ground, and also in the context of India. I mean, this is a Taliban which is carrying out house-to-house search. They've raided Indian consulates. So do you think that there is any scope of them being anything but a terrorist organization?
I wouldn't rush to a conclusion, Sanket, at this point of time. We abandoned our consulate in Jalalabad and in Kandahar, and they went and took away the vehicles and maybe even the papers. We have withdrawn our ambassador from Kabul. I wish we had not. He should have been on the spot and telling us how the situation was developing. but that has happened, that's a deed done. But the point is that India has to continue to watch the situation in Afghanistan. And I am not saying rush to a conclusion, even if Taliban is in control of Kabul at this point of time. But we cannot ignore the fact that there are elements within Afghanistan who are raising their head now, especially in the Panjshir Valley. The old Northern Alliance seems to be reviving. So let's see what happens and then decide what our policy will be. And this will also include the attitude and the behavior of Taliban towards India.
Mr. Sinha, do you feel, and this is a very important point that you're mentioning, do you feel that now is the time not openly to take a decision, but perhaps to be seen the world over to be on the right side? For instance, there is a resistance army. There are people who want to establish Afghanistan as a democracy, and they're fighting for the democratic rights. Whereas on the other hand, you have an organization which has shunned democracy completely. They have declared it as the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. So do you think this could be a moment after some initial waiting and watching for India to choose, the right side, the side of democracy, the side of the resistance movement?
India must always be on the side of democracy everywhere, in all countries. That's my very firm view. But there are many things in foreign policy, in diplomacy, that you don't announce and do. You do it, but don't make a public announcement. I'm sure the government is in touch with these elements. And we have a record of helping them in the past. If need arises, we must help them, because we want a democratic Afghanistan. We don't want a terrorist Afghanistan.
Very significant. My final question, Mr. Sinha, there is also a fear within the establishment that all the weapons that were left behind, these American weapons that were meant for the Afghan forces, that have been left behind and captured and looted by the Taliban now, could, and this is a huge area of concern, could strategically find their way into Pakistan and then into Jammu and Kashmir. And that is what has India worried a lot, that the Afghani soil could be used to propel terror against India and Indian soil, using those American weapons.
Sanket, at this point of time, I will not rule it out. India has to be extremely cautious, extremely watchful in dealing with the situation. It's a great tragedy that all the equipment, all the arms which were made available to the Afghan army have been surrendered to the Taliban. And the Taliban is in control of all those sophisticated equipment and arms. And how are they going to use it? Is it going to remain within Afghanistan, or they're going to use it elsewhere? Are they going to be under the influence of Pakistan in order to be able to create trouble in India? All these are things which have to be closely watched. I'll only add at this point of time that so far Taliban has made some noises which are not unwelcome. They have said they will not allow Afghan soil to be used for any action against any other country, and that includes India, of course. So we'll take note of these statements. We'll watch their behavior in Afghanistan, keep our fingers crossed. But I'd also like to tell you that India of 2021 is also not the India of 2001. We are a far more powerful country today. We are the biggest country in the region after China. And therefore, I'll suggest that, we should be in much closer touch with the Russians, who have been are all-weather friend, and who appear to be standing with China and Pakistan at this point of time. We should be seen closer to the Russians at this point of time, and not so much with the Americans who have abandoned Afghanistan and the Afghan people.
All right, Mr. Sinha, thank you very much for joining us on The Big Fight.